He made a prototype visor for a blind alien girl. Days later, 4 elite soldiers came for him. Lights from 1,000 species flickered through curved glass halls. Soft gravity hummed under the floors. Voices in dozens of languages blended into a constant, gentle noise. To most beings, it was overwhelming. To Ethan Hale, it was familiar. Ethan was human. That alone made him easy to miss. Humans were not rare, but they were not important either. In the galaxy's long list of advanced species, humanity sat somewhere in the middle. Useful. Adaptable, quiet. They fixed things, carried cargo, and solved small problems. No one expected much more. Ethan was a systems technician. He repaired navigation panels, cleaned sensor arrays, and rewired old machines no one else wanted to touch. He liked broken things. Broken things made sense. Every morning he walked the long ring corridor from his small rented room to the engineering sector. And every morning he passed the same place, a wide observation dome where stars drifted slowly beyond transparent alloy walls. That was where he first noticed her. She sat on a low bench near the glass, her legs not quite reaching the floor. Her skin was pale silver blue, smooth and unmarked. Her head was slightly larger than human normal, and where eyes should have been, there were only soft, closed ridges. She was blind. Ethan knew the species. Lurin. They were known across the galaxy for their calm minds and deep mathematical skills. They were also known for one simple fact: all Lurin were born without sight. To them, blindness was not a disability. It was identity. Still, something about the girl made Ethan slow his steps. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening, not to the stars but to the space around her. Her hands rested on the bench, fingers lightly tapping in patterns. She wasn't waiting. She wasn't bored. She was sensing. Ethan watched for a moment, then continued walking. He told himself it was none of his business. The next day, she was there again, and the day after that. Sometimes she was alone. Sometimes an adult Lurin stood nearby, always careful, always watchful, but the girl never moved from her spot. She always faced the glass, even though she could not see what lay beyond it. On the 4th day, Ethan stopped. "Hi," he said, unsure if she would even hear him clearly. Her head turned toward his voice instantly, not slowly, not carefully, exactly. "Yes," she said in clear trade common. Her voice was calm, curious, and very young. Ethan paused. "I see you here a lot." "Yes," she replied. "This place is quiet." He nodded, then remembered she couldn't see that. "I'm Ethan." "I am Sally," she said. "You are human." "Yeah," she smiled slightly. "Your footsteps are uneven. Humans do that." He laughed before he could stop himself. "Guess that's true." There was a short silence, not awkward, just empty. "Why do you face the window?" Ethan asked gently. Sally tilted her head again. "Because this is where the stars are." "But you can't." He stopped himself. "I know," she said, "but I like knowing where they are." Something in her words stayed with him long after he left. That night, Ethan sat in his small room, tools spread across his table. Half-finished projects filled the shelves, small machines, broken screens, old human tech modified in strange ways. He was known among station workers for fixing things no one else could. But that night, he wasn't fixing anything. He was thinking about Sally. About how calmly she had said it. "I like knowing where they are." Most species accepted their limits. They adapted inside them, Lurin especially. They believed the universe shaped beings perfectly for their role. To change that was considered disrespectful to nature. Humans didn't think that way. Humans saw limits and wondered if they were real. Ethan opened a dusty case and pulled out an old human neural interface visor. It was outdated, abandoned years ago when better models appeared. It had never been meant for sight, only data display for pilots. He turned it in his hands. "What if?" he murmured. He wasn't thinking about curing blindness. He didn't even know if that was possible. But humans had learned long ago that vision was not just eyes. It was interpretation, signals, patterns. What if the brain didn't need eyes, he thought? What if it just needed information? The idea stayed small at first, just curiosity, just a question. The next day, he passed the observation dome again. Sally was there listening to the universe. "Do you like machines?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "They speak honestly." That made him smile. "Would you like to try something?" he asked. Her guardian hesitated, but Sally spoke first. "What kind of thing?" "A harmless one," Ethan said quickly. "Just information, sounds, patterns." The guardian studied him carefully. Humans were unpredictable, but Ethan's posture was open, nervous even. After a moment, the guardian nodded once. "If she wishes." "I wish," Sally said simply. Over the next few days, Ethan worked quietly. He didn't tell anyone, he didn't ask permission. He used scraps, old parts, and human software that no longer existed in official databases. The device was crude, heavy, ugly, but it was honest. He rewired the visor to pull spatial data from station sensors: distance, movement, shape. He translated that data into gentle pulses, tones, and neural signals designed to be felt, not seen. It wasn't sight, it was awareness. When it was done, Ethan's hands shook as he held it. "This may not work," he told Saley honestly. "And if it feels wrong, we stop," she nodded. "That is fair." He placed the visor gently over her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Saley froze, her fingers stopped tapping, her breath caught not in fear but surprise. "The room," she whispered. "It is larger." Ethan's heart pounded. "What do you feel?" he asked softly. "There are edges," she said slowly. "Soft ones and moving things. You are in front of me." "Yes," he said, barely breathing. "I know where you are," she said, "not by sound." Tears filled Ethan's eyes. Saley reached out, her hand moving through the air with careful confidence, then stopping inches from his chest. "I can feel space," she said. "Is this how you live?" He swallowed. "Something like that." She smiled, wide and unguarded. "I like it," she said. Ethan didn't notice the station cameras adjusting. He didn't notice the silent data flag sent through secure channels. But somewhere far beyond Helixport, 4 elite soldiers would soon read a report that began with a simple line: "Human civilian technology has achieved an impossible result." The device was heavy, warm from use, and held together by more hope than design. Some of the signals lagged, some came too fast. The translation from machine to mind was rough, unfinished human, but it worked. That alone made it dangerous. Saley sat very still on the bench in the observation dome. She did not speak right away. Her guardian watched closely, his body tense, ready to pull the visor away if anything seemed wrong. "Are you hurt?" Ethan asked quietly. "No," Saley said. "I am thinking." She lifted her hands slowly, turning them as if seeing them for the first time, though she still did not see in the way humans did. "When I moved," she said, choosing her words carefully, "the world moved with me, not away, not late." Ethan nodded. "That's because it's not sound-based, it's spatial." "I do not know that word," she said. "It means where things are, how far, how close." She smiled again. "Then yes, I know that now," her guardian finally spoke. "Human," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This device." "What does it do?" Ethan took a breath. "It doesn't give sight," he said honestly. "It gives information. Your daughter's mind does the rest." The guardian considered this. Lurin culture valued clarity and truth. Ethan had offered both. "This goes against our medical understanding," the guardian said. "I know," Ethan replied. "I didn't mean to challenge your beliefs, I just wanted to help." Saley turned her head toward her guardian. "Father," she said softly, "it does not change who I am." That was what decided it. They did not forbid Ethan from returning. They did not report him. They simply allowed Saley to continue. Over the next few days, Ethan refined the visor. He reduced noise, smoothed signals, adjusted feedback based on Saley's reactions. Each session lasted only a short time. He was careful, always careful. Saley learned faster than he expected. She learned how to judge distance by pressure, how to understand shape through tone, how movement created gentle shifts in the signal field. She began walking without holding the bench, then without holding the wall, then across open space. Word spread quietly. At first it was only whispers among technicians and dock workers. "The human built something strange. The blind Lurin child can walk alone now. It's probably a trick." Then doctors noticed. Medical specialists from 3 species observed Saley during routine checks. They found nothing wrong, no harm, no stress, no neural damage, and that made them uneasy. Because according to galactic medical science, this should not have been possible. Lurin neurology was well documented. Their brains lacked visual processing centers. The galaxy had accepted this centuries ago. Humans, it seemed, had not. Ethan was called into a small office near the medical wing. No guards, no threats, just questions. "You are not licensed to perform cognitive interface testing," said the station medical overseer, a tall insectoid being with shimmering eyes. "I didn't test," Ethan said carefully. "I offered an option." "You altered perception," the overseer replied. "No," Ethan said, "I shared data." There was a pause. "That distinction is very human," the overseer said. The visor was examined, scanned, logged, then returned. "Until further notice," the overseer said. This device is classified as a personal aid, not a medical instrument. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. He thought that would be the end of it. He was wrong. Sally's progress accelerated. She began identifying people by shape instead of sound. She noticed moving service drones before they spoke. She laughed when she almost collided with a cargo cart and stopped herself in time. "I knew it was there," she said proudly. Other Lyran children watched with quiet fascination. Some adults looked away. To them, this felt wrong, not harmful, not illegal, just uncomfortable, because it suggested that limits were not permanent, and if one limit could be questioned, then others might follow. A quiet message left Helix Port that night. It did not include Ethan's name. Only data, neural interface, human design logic, unapproved adaptation. The message was marked low priority. That status changed quickly. Ethan noticed the difference before anyone spoke to him. Station sensors lingered longer on his workbench. Security drones passed his corridor more often. Conversations stopped when he entered rooms. No one threatened him. No one needed to. Humans were good at noticing patterns. Sally noticed too. "The station feels louder," she said during one session. "How so?" Ethan asked. "There are more edges," she replied. "Watching ones?" Ethan's stomach tightened. He adjusted the visor settings, lowering sensitivity. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe." She nodded, but she was not convinced. One evening after Sally had left with her guardian, Ethan stayed behind in the dome. Stars drifted silently beyond the glass. He wondered what Sally felt when she sensed them now. Did they feel wide, heavy, calm? A voice spoke behind him. "You built this without permission." Ethan turned slowly. A woman stood there, tall, blue-skinned, wearing the insignia of a Galactic Intelligence Division. Not military, not police, something quieter. "Yes," Ethan said, "I did." "Why?" she asked. He didn't hesitate. "Because no one else would." She studied him for a long moment. "You understand," she said, "that your invention may have consequences far beyond this station." "I understand," Ethan replied, "but I didn't build it for the galaxy." "No," she agreed. "You built it for one child." She turned to leave, then paused. "That makes you more dangerous than you realize." After she left, Ethan sat alone for a long time. He did not regret what he had done. But for the first time, he wondered who else was watching. Far away, on a world built for strategy and control, 4 elite soldiers reviewed an updated report. The classification had changed again. "Human innovation shows pattern-breaking behavior," the report read, "motivated by empathy rather than gain." One of the soldiers leaned back. "That's worse," he said quietly, and orders were prepared not to stop Ethan Hale. But to meet him, Ethan noticed it immediately. Security drones glided along corridors with more attention than before. Engineers whispered as they passed him, their voices cautious but curious. Something about him and his invention had shifted the station's rhythm. But Ethan didn't care. His focus was on Sally. She sat on her usual bench in the observation dome, her small hands moving through the air as if feeling invisible threads. When Ethan entered, she smiled broadly. "You're early today," she said. "I wanted to see you try the new settings," Ethan replied, holding a small tablet. He tapped a few buttons. The visor had been adjusted overnight. The patterns were now smoother, pulses more refined. Sally tilted her head. "I can feel the space better." "Yes," Ethan said. "It's easier to understand, not just sense." She paused. Then she said something that made Ethan's chest tighten with pride. "I can see the edges of the room. I can tell where the walls end. I can even tell which way is up without touching anything." Ethan swallowed. "You're learning fast." She laughed, a sound like wind through soft metal. "Faster than you think." Her guardian appeared quietly at the entrance. He had stopped trying to hide his curiosity. His silver-blue eyes reflected a careful admiration. "You said it is safe," he said to Ethan. "Yes," Ethan replied, "but it is also not perfect. She must be careful." The guardian nodded, accepting the answer. He had seen Lyran children before. They were cautious by nature. But he had never seen one interact with the world in this way. "Your child's mind is remarkable," Ethan said. The guardian looked at him. "It is yours too. You gave her more than a device. You gave her freedom." Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest. Humans were not often recognized in the galaxy. Their contributions were small, practical, temporary, but this acknowledgement, it lingered like sunlight. Over the next few days, the changes were subtle but undeniable. Sally moved confidently across the dome without touching walls or benches. She reached for objects in the room and found them without error. Small gestures, a turn of her hand, a step forward, revealed spatial awareness that no Lurin, trained or untrained, had shown before. Other children came to watch. Some of them pressed close to the edges of the dome, curious. They wanted to feel the world as Saley now could. Some adults observed silently, eyes narrowed in worry or skepticism. Nothing dangerous, nothing violent, but the room itself had changed. It was no longer a quiet space. It was alive. The whispers grew. Word of the human device spread quietly through the station. At first it was dismissed. Humans often tinkered with machines. Humans sometimes got lucky. But the results could not be ignored. Medical teams returned under the pretense of routine checks. They observed her. They studied her hand movements. They monitored neural activity through indirect scanning. All readings were normal, even impressive. Saley's mind seemed to adapt to the visor as though it were part of her own body. The lead medical officer, a large, orange-scaled reptilian, leaned down to speak to Ethan one afternoon. "Do you understand what you've done?" he asked. "I've made a device that helps her sense space," Ethan said simply. "You've done more than that," the officer replied. "You've created a method for a human brain, or any brain, potentially, to interpret data in ways that were thought impossible." Ethan paused. He had thought only of helping one child. The implication that it could affect other species, that idea had never occurred to him. "I only wanted her to understand the room," he admitted. The officer studied him, head tilting. "That makes it dangerous." Ethan frowned. "Dangerous, not harmful," the officer said. "But your work defies expectations. You've changed how the galaxy might think about perception, about limits. That is unpredictable." Unpredictable. That was a word humans understood. Humans thrived in the space between rules. They did not always follow instructions. They questioned limits. That was what had made their technology adaptable. That was what had made their minds remarkable. Ethan returned to the observation dome. Saley was tracing the edge of the bench with her hands, moving with quiet precision. "Do you hear me?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I hear the space. It is different today, more alive." Ethan smiled. "It's because you're moving better, faster than yesterday." "I feel the room change," she said. "I know where things are before they touch me." The statement was simple, but it carried weight. Ethan realized that the visor was no longer just a tool. It had become a bridge between the girl and her world. She could navigate, explore, and understand in ways that had seemed impossible before. He watched her for a long moment, heart swelling. Humans had a gift, the willingness to try, to fail, and to adapt. That gift had brought this moment to life. Meanwhile, the quiet whispers of attention were growing louder. Somewhere on the station, security sensors had logged unusual activity around Ethan's workspace. Unauthorized visits, passive observation of his movements. The small data packet sent to intelligence agencies far across the galaxy had already reached several high-ranking officers. They had been waiting for confirmation, and now they had it. Far from Helix Port, in a world built for strategy, planning, and control, 4 elite soldiers reviewed the report. It was brief, technical, clinical. But the implications were clear. Human technology created spatial awareness in a species incapable of sight. Motivation, empathy, not gain. Potential, unpredictable. One soldier leaned back in his chair. He had trained for war, diplomacy, and espionage. He had seen threats of every shape and form, but he frowned at this. "This is worse," he said softly. "Not because it's dangerous, but because it cannot be predicted. The human's motivation is unfamiliar." Another soldier nodded. "We don't know what the human will do next. That is what makes them remarkable, and what makes them a variable we cannot ignore." Back at Helix Port, Ethan noticed the change in atmosphere as well. Engineers were quieter. Observers lingered near the dome, pretending to repair equipment. Even the station's automated systems seemed more attentive, scanning more frequently around the observation area. But Saley was oblivious to it. She only felt the room grow more alive with each passing day, and she had begun to experiment. "Watch," she said one afternoon, stepping away from the bench. The visor hummed softly on her head. "I can reach the center of the room. I can sense all objects without touching them." Ethan held his breath. Her steps were careful, deliberate. She paused, turned, reached out with a hand and felt the edge of a small crate, then another, then the far wall. She stopped and laughed. "I did it, I can feel everything." The laughter drew a small crowd of onlookers. Aliens, humans, and others paused to watch the blind girl explore the space as if it were completely hers. "She is extraordinary," whispered one observer. Ethan did not answer. He only smiled, proud, but inside he felt unease. The world had taken notice, and for humans, notice could be both a blessing and a warning. Later that evening, he returned to his room to continue refining the visor. He worked quietly, adjusting neural signals, smoothing pulse sequences, and recording patterns of Sally's adaptation. Each improvement made the world slightly more understandable for her. Each improvement also widened the reach of his invention, potentially beyond anyone's control. The next morning, the observation dome was unusually crowded. Sally's guardian stood at the edge, watching her with a mixture of pride and concern. "More visitors," he said. "They are not here for her," Ethan replied. "They are here for the device." The guardian frowned but did not object. He had learned that humans acted in strange, unpredictable ways, and sometimes those strange ways changed everything. Sally, oblivious, moved confidently among the watchers. She lifted her hands, felt the edges of the benches, traced the walls, and smiled. "You are better than yesterday," Ethan said quietly. "I feel better," she replied. "I am learning faster." It was true. Sally was learning at a speed that no one expected. Her mind adapted effortlessly to the new information. She discovered ways to navigate that even Ethan had not predicted. The visor was no longer just a machine. It was an extension of her being. And somewhere beyond Helixport, across vast distances of empty space, the 4 elite soldiers prepared their journey. They had orders: observe, evaluate, meet. They did not know what to expect. They did not know if the human was a threat. They only knew one thing. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictable things were dangerous or revolutionary. The day ended with Sally sitting in the center of the dome, hands outstretched, eyes closed behind the visor. The crowd had left. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the device. Ethan watched her, heart full. The girl who could not see had changed the room, and in doing so, she had changed everyone who watched. That night, as the station lights dimmed and stars glimmered faintly through the dome, Ethan realized the first truth of human ingenuity. It was never the machine. It was always the mind behind it. And that mind, guided by care, curiosity, and persistence, was about to meet consequences larger than anything he had imagined. The morning started like any other at Helixport. The stars drifted slowly past the observation dome, and the hum of the station filled every corridor. But Ethan felt a tension in the air he couldn't ignore. Something was coming. He didn't know what or from where, but instinct whispered that the calm was temporary. He was not wrong. It began with the subtle signs. Small shadows at the corners of corridors, unmarked personnel quietly surveying the engineering wing, and security drones pausing near his workspace, scanning with unusual care. At first, Ethan dismissed it. Humans were good at noticing patterns, but they were also prone to overthinking. He told himself it was paranoia. Then came the knock. 4 precise, measured knocks at his door, not rough, not loud, but deliberate. Ethan froze. Something in him recognized it immediately. They were not ordinary visitors. He opened the door to find 4 figures standing in formation, their posture rigid, their uniforms unlike anything he had seen before. They were humans, but not like him, not civilians. Not station workers, these humans carried an aura of authority and precision that seemed almost unnatural. The tallest stepped forward. His voice was calm even, but carried an edge of command. "Ethan Hale?" "Yes," Ethan said, unsure of what else to say. "Can I help you?" "We are here on behalf of the Interstellar Council," the man replied. "We would like to speak with you privately." Ethan's stomach tightened. He had heard of the Council, a governing body made up of the most advanced species in the galaxy, enforcing rules, observing behavior, and maintaining order. Humans rarely interacted with them directly, except through messengers or reports. And here they were standing at his door. He swallowed. I see. Please come in." The 4 soldiers entered with synchronized steps, surveying the small room with quiet efficiency. None of them spoke unnecessarily. Their eyes moved, noting every corner, every tool, every loose wire on Ethan's workbench. They were observers, not intruders, but their presence carried weight. "Do you know why we are here?" asked the tallest soldier. Ethan shook his head. "I can guess, but I would rather hear it from you." The soldier nodded once. "We have been monitoring your recent work with the Lurin child, Sally. Your device, it exceeds expectations. It demonstrates human innovation at a level previously undocumented. Ethan's throat went dry. I only wanted to help her, he said. That's all. It was never meant to exceed anything. That is precisely why we are here, the soldier replied. Your motivations are unusual. Predictable risk assessments cannot account for empathy-driven innovation. Ethan frowned. He had always known humans were unpredictable. That unpredictability was what had allowed them to survive in a galaxy dominated by stronger, faster, and more technologically advanced species. But hearing it put into words, especially by council soldiers, felt heavier than he expected. We are not here to punish you, said the second soldier, a shorter woman with sharp gray eyes. Nor to confiscate your work. We are here to understand it, to understand you. Ethan exhaled slowly. Understand me? Yes, said the soldier. Your actions suggest that humans may be capable of reasoning and problem-solving beyond what the Council has anticipated. We need to know the limits and the potential. He shook his head. Limits? The tallest soldier stepped closer. Humans are currently considered a minor species, useful, adaptable, but not a threat. Your work indicates that this assessment may need revision. Ethan felt a mix of pride and anxiety. Pride because of what he had accomplished. Anxiety because he had never wanted to stand out, never wanted to attract attention. Helping Saley was personal, not political. Yet now, the council had drawn him into something much larger. The third soldier, a quiet figure with calm amber eyes, finally spoke. We are not here to stop you. We are here to observe and to offer guidance. Guidance? Ethan repeated. Yes, the fourth soldier said, his voice smooth like flowing water. You have created something remarkable. But the galaxy does not yet understand humans the way it will soon need to. You are part of that story. Whether you accept it or not, your actions are significant. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I only wanted one child to experience the world differently. I never meant for it to reach this scale. That is precisely why your work is important, said the tallest soldier. It demonstrates that human ingenuity operates independently of status, expectation, or regulation. That is rare. That is dangerous. That is remarkable. Ethan's mind raced. Dangerous, remarkable. He felt a rush of conflicting emotions, fear, curiosity, pride, and responsibility. I do not want to be a weapon, he said finally. I am not a soldier. I am not a strategist. I just invent. I help. The gray-eyed soldier regarded him for a long moment. We do not seek a weapon. We seek understanding. You are already influencing the galaxy in ways that many cannot perceive. Ethan looked at them, feeling the weight of every word. Somehow his small actions with one blind girl had drawn attention from the galaxy's most powerful enforcers. Somehow his human empathy, his willingness to tinker, to experiment, to care, had changed everything. Will Saley be safe? He asked. Yes, said the amber-eyed soldier. She is safe, but your work has potential beyond this station. That is why we are here, to meet the mind behind it. Ethan swallowed again. He had never imagined that building a device for one child could have consequences this large. The tallest soldier extended a hand. We would like to accompany you to a secure observation site. No threats, no harm, only discussion. You will have freedom of choice. Ethan hesitated. Then he looked at Saley's empty bench. She would not understand. He could not explain. And yet he knew that humans thrived on choices, even difficult ones. Okay, he said finally. I will go. The four soldiers nodded once each. Their eyes flicked around the room as if confirming every detail. Then they turned, moving with quiet precision toward the door. Ethan followed, carrying only the tablet that controlled the visor. He left the observation dome behind, knowing that Saley would remain under the careful watch of her guardian. She trusted him. That was enough. As they moved through the station, Ethan noticed subtle changes. Other beings stepped aside politely, recognizing the presence of the council soldiers. Security systems adjusted in real time, granting them unobstructed passage. Helix Port itself seemed to acknowledge that something significant was occurring. They arrived at a sleek transport vessel docked near the outer ring. The interior was quiet, minimalist, and efficient. The four soldiers gestured for Ethan to sit. This vessel will take us to a secure observation site, said the tallest soldier. You will remain comfortable. You will have full access to your equipment. No one will interfere. But understand, this journey is for assessment and dialogue, not leisure. Ethan nodded. I understand. The ship lifted smoothly, gliding through the station's empty corridors and out into the blackness of space. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the transparent canopy. Ethan felt a strange connection to Sally at that moment. She was out there somewhere sensing space as she always had, but now the galaxy was starting to notice. The soldiers observed him silently for a long while. Their presence was calm but intense, like gravity, steady, unyielding, impossible to ignore. Finally, the gray-eyed soldier spoke. "Ethan, do you understand why humans are seen as minor in the galaxy?" He nodded slowly. I think so. We are adaptable, yes, but often overlooked, small, unimportant to larger powers." "Correct," said the soldier. "And yet, as you have demonstrated, humans can surpass expectations. They can innovate in ways that no one predicts. They can care in ways no algorithm can simulate." Ethan thought of Sally, of her joy, her confidence, her ability to feel the room without seeing it. And he realized that this simple act, helping one child, had rippled far beyond anything he could have imagined. The ship moved steadily through space, carrying them toward the observation site. Ethan felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. He did not know what awaited him. He did not know how the council would judge him. He only knew one thing: he had acted with honesty, empathy, and care. And sometimes that was more powerful than any weapon, any technology, any strategy. The vessel passed a bright nebula, and the soldiers remained silent, their eyes fixed on him. For the first time, Ethan understood something fundamental about the galaxy. Humans were unpredictable. That unpredictability was not weakness, it was strength. And as the secure observation site drew closer, he realized that he was about to see just how far human ingenuity and human compassion could reach. The vessel glided through empty space, leaving Helix Port behind. Stars streaked past like silver rivers, and the hum of the engines was the only sound. Ethan sat in a quiet corner, tablet in hand, watching the galaxy unfold. His mind was a mixture of curiosity and unease. The four soldiers observed him silently. Not in a threatening way, but with attention so precise that Ethan felt like every motion, every breath was noted. It was not intimidation, it was scrutiny. He understood. They were trying to measure more than just his invention. They were trying to understand him. Finally, the tallest soldier spoke. His voice was calm but firm. "Ethan Hale, we have brought you here to discuss the implications of your work with the Lurin child, Sally." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I only helped her. That's all I meant to do." "Yes," said the soldier. "But your actions demonstrate something more profound than you realize. The visor you created has potential far beyond one child. It is a proof of concept, an example of human problem-solving, ingenuity, and empathy in combination. These traits, when applied systematically, could alter how the galaxy perceives humans." Ethan frowned. "Alter how? I don't want to be a threat. I just invent for good." "That is exactly why this is significant," said the gray-eyed soldier. "Humanity is unpredictable because your motivations are not always aligned with conquest, profit, or control. That is rare. That is dangerous in a sense, not harmful but capable of rewriting assumptions." Ethan shifted in his seat, trying to grasp the weight of their words. Dangerous, that was not what he wanted to hear. He was not a soldier, a spy, or a strategist. He was a tinkerer, a human who helped a blind child experience the world differently. And yet somehow, his small act of empathy had captured the attention of the galaxy's most powerful forces. The third soldier, quiet until now, leaned forward slightly. "We do not intend to harm you or restrict your work, but we need to assess its implications. Your methods, your thought process, your motivations, they reveal a pattern that has not been studied before." Ethan blinked. "You want to study me?" "Yes," the soldier said simply. "To understand how humans innovate in ways that defy expectation. To anticipate potential future developments, and to decide how the galaxy should respond." Ethan's mind raced. "So I'm not in trouble?" "No," said the tallest soldier. "Not in the way you think. You are not under arrest. You are not being coerced. But your work may influence the future of your species in ways you cannot imagine." Ethan looked down at the tablet in his hands. The visor he had built for one child had become a symbol, a spark. He had acted out of empathy, out of curiosity, out of a desire to see Sally experience the world differently. And now, far beyond Helixport, it had drawn attention from beings who could reshape the galaxy. The fourth soldier, whose eyes were calm and steady, spoke for the first time. "We were sent to observe, yes, but also to offer guidance. The galaxy may not be ready for what humanity is capable of. Your work shows potential for far-reaching influence. Whether that influence is positive or destructive depends on choices, yours and those of your species. Ethan exhaled slowly. I never wanted power. I only wanted to help one girl. And that is precisely why you are significant, the gray-eyed soldier said. Your empathy-driven innovation demonstrates that humans can change the rules without intending to. That makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability, when combined with intelligence, is the most powerful force in the galaxy. Ethan tried to absorb the weight of their words. He had never considered that helping one child could have consequences this large. He had not thought about politics, strategy, or influence. He had only thought about Saley. The tallest soldier continued. We need to know your limits, Ethan. Not to control you, not to restrict you, but to understand the full potential of human ingenuity. Your actions are a signal to the galaxy. Humans are capable of remarkable things, and now the galaxy is watching more closely. Ethan's hands tightened on the tablet. And what about Saley? She's just a child. She is safe, said the third soldier. Her guardian is reliable and the station ensures her protection, but she is also proof of concept. One child, one human, one invention, an entire species' potential demonstrated in a single interaction. That is why we are here. Ethan leaned back, trying to absorb the enormity of the situation. He had always believed that humans were small, adaptable, and quiet. That had been enough, but now the galaxy's perception of humanity could change because of one invention and one act of care. The gray-eyed soldier added, Your invention does not threaten life or property. It does not harm anyone, but it challenges assumptions. And assumptions are the foundation of control. You have shifted that foundation without intending to. That is why we observe. Ethan swallowed hard. I don't want to shift anything. I want to help people see the world differently. I want them to experience what I see when I tinker and create. That is the essence of human innovation, said the tallest soldier. Not to dominate, not to conquer, not to exploit, but to explore, to improve, to understand. That is rare. That is why you are here. And why we are concerned and impressed. For a long while, silence filled the cabin. The stars outside stretched endlessly, indifferent to the human drama inside. Ethan felt the weight of attention, responsibility, and expectation pressing down on him. But he also felt something else, pride. Not arrogance, not ambition, but quiet pride in what he had accomplished and the care with which he had done it. The fourth soldier finally spoke. We must decide how to report this to the council. Your invention is a signal that humanity may soon rise in ways that other species cannot predict. That makes you a variable, Ethan Hale, and variables are significant. Ethan looked at them, unsure what to say. He had never considered that a small act of kindness, helping a blind child, could ripple across the galaxy, changing how others perceived humans. He had not thought about responsibility, influence, or consequence. He had only thought about helping Saley. The tallest soldier leaned forward. We are not here to demand allegiance, cooperation, or obedience, but we ask a question. Will you continue your work? Will you continue to innovate, to explore, to help, knowing that your actions may have consequences far beyond your intent? Ethan paused. He thought of Saley, of the dome, of the quiet joy in her voice when she felt the edges of the room, when she sensed the world beyond her sight. He thought of the countless machines he had built, the systems he had repaired, the ideas he had nurtured quietly in his small corner of the galaxy. Yes, he said finally, I will continue. I will keep helping. I will keep creating, not for power, not for recognition. Only for understanding, only for care. The soldiers nodded, no words followed, they did not need them. In that moment, Ethan realized the truth. Humans were unpredictable not because they were reckless, but because they acted with purpose, guided by empathy, curiosity, and resilience. The vessel began its approach to the observation site. A small, isolated station floated silently in the darkness of space, designed for research, assessment, and observation. It was quiet, unpopulated, and secure, perfect for their conversation, away from the distractions of Helix Port. As the vessel docked, Ethan felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. He did not know exactly what awaited him. He did not know how the soldiers would assess him or what decisions would follow. He only knew that the galaxy was no longer unaware of his existence or his work. The hatch opened, and the four soldiers gestured for him to exit first. The observation station was quiet and sterile, with soft lights and polished floors. Every detail had been designed for focus and clarity. Ethan carried his tablet, his heart beating steadily, unsure what questions or revelations would come next. The tallest soldier finally spoke as they moved into a central chamber. "Ethan, understand this. You are not a threat in the conventional sense. You are a signal. You represent what humans are capable of, and that is both a challenge and an opportunity for the galaxy." Ethan nodded, absorbing the words. He thought of Saley, of the dome, of the simple act that had brought him here. He realized something essential. Sometimes doing the right thing, not the strategic thing, not the safe thing, but the right thing, could change the galaxy in ways no one could predict. And sometimes that change began with just one person, one invention, and one blind child who learned to feel the world in a way no one had expected. The chamber lights dimmed slightly, emphasizing the vast stars visible through the transparent walls. Ethan looked out at the galaxy, knowing that what had started as a small act of empathy was now a catalyst for something much larger. And he understood that the next step, how he would navigate this new reality, would define not only his future but the future of humans in the stars. The journey was far from over. And the galaxy, for the first time, was watching human ingenuity with full attention. The observation station floated quietly in the vast darkness of space, a small speck surrounded by stars. The hum of machinery filled the air, steady and unobtrusive. Yet within its walls, a quiet tension pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan Hale walked slowly through the central chamber, carrying his tablet, and felt the weight of expectation pressing on him. He had not anticipated this. His only goal had been simple: to help a blind alien child, Saley, experience the world in a way no one had thought possible. And now, here he was, at the center of attention from some of the galaxy's most powerful figures, the 4 elite soldiers who had brought him, observing his every movement, studying his mannerisms, his reactions, his very mind. The tallest soldier spoke first, breaking the silence. "Ethan, you understand why you are here. You have done something extraordinary, but extraordinary actions in the wrong hands could have unpredictable consequences. That is why we are observing, questioning, and guiding." Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand, but I am not trying to change the galaxy. I am not trying to become important. I only wanted to help Saley." The gray-eyed soldier, quiet until now, stepped closer. "That is precisely why you are significant. Humans innovate differently than most species. Your motivations are not driven by power, greed, or fear. They are driven by curiosity, empathy, and understanding. That makes you unpredictable. That makes you remarkable." Ethan felt a mix of pride and anxiety. Remarkable. Unpredictable, dangerous. These were not words he had expected to hear in a conversation that began with a simple act of kindness. He thought of Saley, her silver-blue skin glowing softly under the dome lights at Helix Port, her tiny hands reaching through space as if sensing something invisible. She was the reason he was here, yet the implications of his work extended far beyond her. The amber-eyed soldier, who had remained silent for much of the journey, spoke gently. "Ethan, we have reviewed your work, your methods, your interactions with Saley. It is clear that your actions are guided by genuine care, not ambition. But your creativity demonstrates potential for applications far beyond what you intended. Do you understand that?" "I do," Ethan said slowly. "But I cannot control how others might use it. All I can do is act honestly, with care, and hope that is enough." The tallest soldier nodded approvingly. "That is exactly the mindset that makes humans both fascinating and unpredictable. You do not act for personal gain or recognition. You act because it is right, because it matters. That is a rare trait in the galaxy. And it is one that cannot be simulated by technology or strategy." Ethan swallowed hard. He had always believed that humans were minor, quiet, and adaptable, but never that they were capable of such influence. And yet here he was, standing on a station in deep space, being told that his empathy-driven invention could shift perceptions of his entire species. "Ethan," said the gray-eyed soldier, "we are at a crossroads. The Council must decide how to integrate humanity into larger galactic affairs. Your work has demonstrated that humans cannot be treated as minor, predictable species. Your actions show initiative, creativity, and ethical consideration. That is why we have brought you here, to understand your mind, your motivations, and your vision." Ethan paused, his mind racing. He had not come here for this. He had not sought recognition or influence. He only wanted to help Sally feel the edges of the world. And now the galaxy wanted to understand him, and by extension, humanity. I don't know if I am the right person for this," he admitted. "I only act on curiosity and care. I cannot predict consequences or plan strategy. I only try to do what is right." The tallest soldier smiled faintly. "That is exactly why you are perfect. Humanity's strength lies not in prediction or domination, but in the ability to adapt, to care, to innovate without expectation. You have demonstrated that perfectly. And that is what we wish to study, not your inventions alone, but the reasoning behind them." Ethan considered this. He had always tinkered with machines, built devices, and fixed systems out of curiosity. But now he understood that human ingenuity was more than machines. It was the mind behind them, the values that guided them, the choices that shaped outcomes. "Then you wish to study me," Ethan said, trying to clarify. "Yes," said the gray-eyed soldier. "But not in the conventional sense. We do not intend to control, coerce, or interfere. We wish to understand how a human, guided by care and curiosity, can produce results that defy expectations. We wish to understand the principles, the thought processes, and the choices that make humanity remarkable." Ethan nodded slowly. It was still overwhelming, but he realized something profound. The soldiers were not threats. They were not enemies. They were observers fascinated by the very traits that humans often took for granted: empathy, curiosity, persistence, the ability to act without expectation of reward or recognition. "And what about Sally?" Ethan asked. "I cannot leave her behind. She is the reason I am here." "She is safe," said the amber-eyed soldier. "Her guardian watches her. The station ensures her protection, and your influence has already given her the ability to explore her world in ways previously unimaginable. You have done something extraordinary for her, and that is enough for now." Ethan felt a swell of pride. Sally had always been small, quiet, and cautious. But now, thanks to him, she could navigate space with confidence, feel the edges of objects, and sense her surroundings in ways that no other learned child could. She was learning, growing, and thriving, and all he had done was care enough to try. The fourth soldier, who had spoken little until now, finally addressed him. "Ethan, we must ask one final question. Will you continue to innovate? Will you continue to help, to create, to explore, knowing that your actions may influence not only your species but the galaxy at large?" Ethan hesitated. He thought of Sally, of the stars beyond the station, of the small machines he had built quietly in his room. He realized that his choices would indeed ripple farther than he had ever imagined. But he also understood that he could not stop caring. He could not stop creating. He could not stop trying to make the world better, even in small ways. "Yes," he said finally, "I will continue. I will keep helping. I will keep creating, not for recognition, not for power, only for understanding, only for care." The soldiers nodded, silently acknowledging his answer. No words were needed. They understood. They had come not to demand compliance, but to recognize potential. They had come not to control, but to observe the human capacity for empathy, innovation, and choice. Ethan felt a strange sense of calm. The weight of responsibility had not disappeared, but it had been tempered by clarity. He understood his role, not as a leader, not as a conqueror, not as a weapon, but as a human willing to act thoughtfully, creatively, and with care. The tallest soldier spoke again, his tone softening. "Ethan Hale, you have shown us something the galaxy must recognize. Humanity cannot be underestimated. Your choices, your innovations, your empathy, all of these demonstrate that humans are capable of shaping the future in ways no one has anticipated. And that is both an opportunity and a responsibility." Ethan nodded. He had always believed that humans were minor, quiet, and adaptable. Now he understood that they were also remarkable, unpredictable, and capable of influencing the galaxy without even trying. The soldiers gestured toward a small observation deck overlooking the endless expanse of space. Ethan followed, carrying his tablet. Through the transparent walls, stars stretched into infinity, nebulae glimmered with soft colors, and distant planets rotated silently. The universe was vast and humans were small, but in that smallness there was the power to act, to create, and to change. Ethan looked at the soldiers and said softly, "I understand now. It's not about power, it's about choice, about caring. About what we do because it is right, not because it is expected." The gray-eyed soldier nodded. Exactly. That is the essence of humanity, and it is why we are watching, learning, and preparing, not to control you, not to restrict you, but to recognize that your kind, your species, may soon redefine what the galaxy believes is possible. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He had feared scrutiny, authority, and consequence. But what he had found was respect for his intentions, his creativity, and his care. He realized that the galaxy was not waiting to judge him, it was waiting to understand him. And in that understanding, he found a new kind of freedom. The freedom to continue helping, innovating, and creating, not for recognition, not for reward, but because it was the right thing to do. He thought of Sally, alone at Helix Port, sensing the edges of the world with confidence he had given her. He thought of the stars stretching endlessly before him, of the limitless possibilities of human ingenuity and empathy. And he knew this, the story was far from over. The galaxy was watching, learning, and waiting. And humanity, unpredictable and remarkable, was ready to show what it could do. For the first time, Ethan understood the truth that had always been quietly present in human nature. The greatest power of humanity was not force, not speed, not technology, but the choice to act with care, to innovate with purpose, and to make a difference without expecting reward. The observation station remained silent around him, but within its walls, a quiet revolution was beginning. A revolution born not of weapons or wars, but of empathy, ingenuity, and the small, persistent acts of one human who refused to accept limits. And as Ethan Hale looked out at the stars, he felt a sense of clarity and resolve he had never known before. Humanity was not minor. Humanity was not predictable. Humanity was capable of shaping the galaxy, not through fear, but through care, understanding, and the courage to act. The journey ahead would be long. The challenges would be many. But for the first time, Ethan understood that the human spirit, curious, empathetic, and relentless, was ready to meet them. And with that understanding, he was ready to continue, to innovate, and to redefine what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had only just begun to notice. Ethan Hale returned to Helix Port with a strange mixture of relief and curiosity. The 4 soldiers had left him with no orders, no commands, no threats, only guidance and observation. Yet the weight of their visit lingered in every corridor, in every whisper, and in every glance from those who had noticed the unusual attention surrounding his invention. Sally was waiting in the observation dome, her silver-blue skin catching the faint reflections of distant stars. She had sensed his return long before he entered. Her hands moved gently through the air, tracing invisible edges and shapes. When Ethan entered, she lifted her head, a bright smile spreading across her face. "You're back," she said simply. "I could feel it." "I'm back," Ethan replied, smiling, "and I brought some updates for your visor." Her eyes, well, the folds where eyes should have been, sparkled with curiosity. "Updates?" "Yes," he said, handing her the tablet. "Better signals, smoother patterns, easier to understand the room, and eventually the world beyond it." She tilted her head. "The world." Ethan nodded. "Yes, there's more to sense than just this room, and someday you'll be able to feel it all." Her guardian watched silently, his expression a mixture of pride and caution. He had always trusted Ethan, but now there was an unspoken understanding. This human had done something extraordinary, something that no manual, no law, no tradition had predicted. Over the next few weeks, Sally adapted even faster than Ethan expected. She moved confidently through the dome, across open areas, and around obstacles without hesitation. She began to teach herself new ways of understanding space, noticing patterns and movements that even Ethan had not anticipated. The visor had become an extension of her mind, translating the world into signals she could feel, interpret, and respond to. Word spread quietly through the station, and then more broadly through the network of interstellar trade stations and research hubs. Humans, long considered minor and predictable, had shown that their ingenuity could challenge assumptions. A child, blind by her species, standards, had gained the ability to perceive her environment in ways previously thought impossible. And it was all due to a human who acted out of empathy, curiosity, and care. The observation reports returned to the Interstellar Council were not just technical, they were filled with admiration and surprise. Analysts noted that the invention had no destructive capability, no strategic advantage in the usual sense, yet it carried implications far beyond its immediate use. One human, guided by empathy, had demonstrated adaptability, innovation, and ethical decision-making at a level that could influence multiple species. Somewhere in the galaxy, the four elite soldiers reviewed the latest updates on Ethan and Sally. They had been tasked with monitoring the situation quietly, assessing whether humanity was ready to be considered more than minor players. The reports were encouraging. Ethan had continued to innovate responsibly. Sally had thrived. And the galaxy had begun to notice the subtle, profound impact of human creativity guided by care rather than conquest. Back at Helix Port, Ethan worked quietly on refining the visor and experimenting with new designs. He never sought recognition. He never sought reward. Every improvement, every adjustment, every innovation was for Sally, and for any being who might benefit in the future. The station staff observed him with growing respect, noticing the steady, meticulous care he applied to his work. One evening, as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the observation dome, Ethan spoke to Sally quietly. "You've changed everything," he said. "Not just for yourself, but for the station, the people, and maybe even the galaxy." Sally considered this, her hands floating in the air as she traced invisible lines. "I feel more than before," she said. "I understand more than before, but why do they care so much about me?" Ethan smiled softly. "Not just about you, about what we humans can do. About how we think, how we care, how we solve problems. You're showing them the possibilities." She tilted her head thoughtfully. "The possibilities are big." "Yes," Ethan said. "Bigger than you can imagine, and it all starts small. With one step, one discovery, one choice to act." The days passed, and the impact of the visor began to spread subtly but surely. Other species, inspired by Ethan's work, began exploring ways to assist members of their own communities. Tools were developed to help sensory-impaired individuals, not as weapons or competitive advantages, but as bridges, ways to experience the world differently. Humans, previously minor and overlooked, had introduced a new approach. Innovation guided by empathy and curiosity, not by fear or greed. Ethan never sought to lead. He never sought fame. He simply continued to invent, guided by the simple principle of helping others experience life more fully. And the galaxy began to take notice, not through force, not through intimidation, but through quiet admiration. One day, a message arrived from the Interstellar Council, formal but not commanding. It acknowledged Ethan's contributions and recognized the human species' potential for innovation driven by care. The message did not demand allegiance. It did not impose rules. It simply noted that humanity's ingenuity could not be ignored, and that future interactions would consider humans as a species capable of influencing outcomes beyond expectation. Ethan read the message aloud to Sally. "They noticed," she said softly. "They understand us." "Yes," Ethan replied. "They understand that humans think differently, that we act differently, that we care differently. And maybe that can change the galaxy for the better." Sally smiled, reaching out her hands as if feeling the room itself. "Then the world is bigger than before." "Yes," Ethan said, "much bigger." The four soldiers returned briefly to Helix Port, observing silently as Ethan and Sally interacted. They had expected caution, hesitation, or fear. Instead, they saw calm, curiosity, and purpose. Ethan's choices, grounded in empathy, had demonstrated the true nature of humanity: unpredictable, capable, and guided by care. The soldiers departed, leaving no commands, no restrictions, only the quiet acknowledgement that humans had begun to redefine what the galaxy believed possible. And with their departure, Helix Port returned to its normal rhythm. Yet the influence of one human and one blind child continued to ripple outward, subtle but profound. Ethan and Sally continued their sessions. She explored more of the dome than the station itself, feeling the spaces around her with confidence and precision. She discovered hidden corners, gentle curves of hallways, and even the patterns of moving drones, all through the signals from the visor. And with each discovery, Ethan refined the device further, always careful, always attentive. Other beings began to notice. They asked questions, observed quietly, and sometimes sought advice. Ethan never refused. He shared knowledge carefully, encouraging others to approach innovation with thoughtfulness and care. Months later, small reports began to circulate throughout interstellar networks. Humans, previously considered minor, had demonstrated the ability to solve problems through empathy-driven invention. Not as conquerors, not as strategists, not as aggressors, but as thinkers, tinkerers, and problem solvers. The galaxy began to see humanity in a new light. One evening, as Ethan stood at the observation dome with Saley beside him, he looked out at the stars, stretching endlessly, infinite and beautiful. "Do you think they'll understand us?" Saley asked. "I think they are beginning to," Ethan replied. "And maybe they will learn to look at the universe differently, to see not just power or speed or force, but understanding, compassion, curiosity. The small acts that make a big difference." Saley reached out, brushing her hand against his. "Then we are not alone." "No," Ethan said softly, "not alone, and the galaxy is beginning to notice." The stars shone brighter that night, reflected in the visor, in the dome, and in the quiet determination of one human who had chosen to act with care. His actions had shown that even small acts, helping one child, refining one device, choosing empathy over convenience, could ripple outward, changing perception, opening minds, and shaping the future. And the galaxy, for the first time, began to learn what it meant to truly look differently. Humans were no longer minor. They were unpredictable, capable, and remarkable, not because of weapons or speed or technology, but because they chose to act with care, to innovate with purpose, and to imagine what could be possible. Ethan Hale smiled at Saley, feeling the quiet power of a single act of kindness amplified across the stars. He understood now that the journey was far from over. The galaxy would continue to watch, to learn, and to adapt. And humanity, unpredictable and brilliant, would continue to show the universe what could happen when curiosity, empathy, and ingenuity combined. The observation dome remained silent, but within its walls the quiet revolution had begun. A revolution of understanding, creativity, and the courage to care. And it had started with one human, one blind child, and the simple choice to make a difference. For the first time, Ethan felt the true weight and the true beauty of being human. And the stars beyond Helixport seemed to shine just a little brighter, reflecting the limitless possibilities of what humanity could become.